India has the single largest grid in the world. No OECD market, including China, can match the vision we have and the preparedness we have.
I think we are probably second or third largest consumer of hydrogen in the world. Right? So hydrogen as a commodity is not a new commodity for us.
India, I think we sold 14 million ACs last year. That alone will need 15 gigawatts of power. So achieving energy plus storage, coal-like reliability below 5 rupees is a massive competitive advantage India has.
You need all kinds of technologies to keep pace. So you can't just keep adding solar, you need wind to keep pace. If you see the mix of what we've been adding, we've obviously been adding solar at a very fast pace. We've not been keeping pace on wind.
India will be the largest supplier of green molecules to Europe or to large OECD countries.
If somebody wants to set up a factory anywhere in the world, I mean, you would look at, reliability, you would look at cost kind of metrics, right? And now one of the important metrics is where can I deliver my lowest carbon product? Right? If you're making steel, you're making aluminum, you're making chemicals, right? So the underlying energy needs to be low carbon, reliable and low cost.
Hello and welcome to India for the World, a leadership series by Mint and BCG. Throughout this series, we will be bringing together visionary leaders and pioneers who are shaping India's transformation into a global powerhouse. In this episode, we will tackle some of the most pressing questions related to energy transition. How crucial will renewable energy be for us to meet our net zero targets? What role will green hydrogen play? How will we fund this transition? And let's not forget about nuclear and hydropower. Will they bridge the gap? We will discuss this and more. Joining us today are Mahesh Kolli, founder and president Greenko Group, and Vishal Mehta, leader for energy practice at BCG in India. I am Nehal Chaliawala from Mint. Let's dive right in. So Mahesh, at Greenko, you were one of the pioneers for renewable energy. You made a bet on this sector in early 2010s when people were not really convinced about the business viability of this entire sector. So can you just give us an insight into how difficult it was to make a business case out of renewable energy when you started in the early 2010s?
Great. I think, Nehal, Anil, my partner, and myself, we started to work in UK as professionals, and around late 2000s, we wanted to get back to India. We looked at where is the long-term value add we would like to bring in. But clearly, our view of India energy transition was from more outside in, and it's a period where all the big business houses in India were working on large-scale energy additions in form of coal, gas. I think we had a long-term view that if we can deliver domestic energy, it happens to be green, which is inflation-proof. It need not be of that scale of coal, but we will, over a period of 10, 15, 20 years, be a more mainstream energy. Right? So I think the long-term view we had was, hey, can we deliver cost of energy close to the coal with energy forms which is sustainable, does not have carbon in it, and naturally anything which does not have carbon will not have inflation issues with it, right? So I think with that view, we said what is the right quality of energy we like to work with. In the order of quality of energy for us, hydropower was the highest quality. Later wind and then solar. So I think we went through nearly 15 years of building energy in this order. At Greenko today, we are building, so we are operating around 10 gigawatts of renewables, what I call as standalone renewables. And we are building 10 gigawatts of pumped hydro storage, which will add around 100 gigawatt hours of energy storage. It will be the largest energy storage network globally. 100 gigawatt hours of energy storage can take 75 gigawatts of renewables and make it dispatchable and make it more valuable to the energy market. That's, I think, we touched 200 gigawatts. But the bigger transition, which we will talk later, is the 100 gigawatt hour energy storage will provide the infrastructure required to add 500 gigawatts of renewables. So that's the bigger long-term focus we have. And how do we make renewables, which is, in our view, right cost of energy today, cheaper than coal, but a low-quality energy. And how do we enhance the quality of this energy and make it more valuable to industries, more valuable to utilities, and also to the hydrogen value
So
chain.
what Mahesh means by quality is how reliable and consistent an energy source is. And you mentioned how we would need about 100 gigawatts of storage to achieve 500 gigawatts of renewable. I'll come back to you on that. But Vishal, Mahesh mentioned the 500 gigawatt number.
Yeah.
So India has set up a target of achieving 500 gigawatts of installed renewable non-fossil fuel capacity by 2030. I think we added about 28 gigawatts in 2024,
Yeah.
which, just for context, is a bit more than the entire grid of Bangladesh. So that's the scale we're operating at. But to achieve 500 gigawatts, we'll have to add about 50 gigawatts a year starting every year 2025.
Yeah.
So how do we achieve that target? How realistic it is, and what sort of a business opportunity it presents?
Yeah. So look, I think if you think about 500 gigawatt, it might seem like a big target, but it's actually born out of necessity. If you take India's power system, give or take, is an average of 200 gigawatt kind of demand, right? And if even if you take 6-7% GDP growth, that means about 12 gigawatt of additional capacity anyways you need. Now 12 gigawatt in equivalent renewable terms, because renewable is not 100% load factor, right? So even if you take 25% load factor, then 12 gigawatt
Right,
itself
because
is equal to...
Basically, it doesn't provide the same consistent energy throughout the day as, say, a coal-fired power plant
Correct.
would.
So a 12 gigawatt of consistent is anyways equivalent to about 45-50 gigawatt of
Installed capacity, so that it can reliably give 12 gigawatt at any given time.
Correct. So you anyways need that much just to kind of keep pace with the increasing energy demand you have, right? I think the more important point on that 500 gigawatt is the nature of that 500 gigawatt, because you can only keep adding capacity if basically that kind of demand is there by the end consumers. And while on a broad term, yes, on gigawatt basis, gigawatt hour basis, you will have that demand, but you need reliable, consistent power, as you said. You need all kinds of technologies to keep pace. So you can't just keep adding solar. You need wind to keep pace. If you see the mix of what we've been adding, we've obviously been adding solar at a very fast pace. We've not been keeping pace on wind. And you're starting to see a lot of storage tenders, etc., coming in, which are more and more required to be able to build this architecture, right? So if you think of getting to 500 gigawatt, I think there will be a lot of challenges on execution, financing, etc. But that we will learn. I mean, we were at 10 gigawatt annual addition, you're getting to 20, 25. But more importantly, you have to add it in a fashion that there are takers for it. Otherwise, you will end up on the other side, the utilities or the,
What do you mean to have takers for it? I mean, I'm still using my AC.
Yeah, but you get your AC, you switch on your AC and you get electricity, right? You want it in the night and then there is no solar, right? How will you get that electricity if you're only adding solar power?
Right.
So you need it on demand, you need it firm, those are what defines as the quality of power. So if you have to get to that kind of energy, then it's just not about adding gigawatts of solar and wind. It is about adding much more. And, as Mahesh ascribed, in his opening question, you need a lot more firm, dispatchable kind of energy, for which you need either other types of sources or you need storage fundamentally to be able to build that.
Right. So, essentially, I mean, you have solar when the sun shines or wind when the wind blows.
Yeah,
you can't
that
have
is also,
it through the day.
Yes, and that is also during a day. I mean, you will have seasons when you will probably not even have.
I think even recently there was a grid scare when unusual large cloud cover over northern India led to some concern over the reliability of grid, because the solar plants were not generating as much power as they were designed to. So of course that problem is there.
So in my view, and I think that's where we should kind of talk about, is delivering gigawatts on plain vanilla renewable assets is a probably, I would say, old story, because that's what entrepreneurs have learned. People have started building it out. You will always have challenges in execution on the ground, but I think that anyways,
So I think Mahesh is now delivering or writing the news story.
Yeah.
So Mahesh, I think now Greenko has shifted focus from setting up, say, solar and wind power stations. Your primary focus is now on developing storage solutions. So that basically when a solar power plant produces energy, you store it, and when the sun is down, you can use that stored energy. So how are you doing that? And what are the different ways of doing that?
Again, going back to in 2017, we were very proud of, we built at that time world's largest standalone solar farm in AP. It is an 850 megawatts, built in less than 6 months. And we were so proud of it. And in 2018, I met one of my, I would say, favorite gentlemen in the world, is Sir David Attenborough in London.
Wow.
So when I was trying to explain him how big this interesting single-site solar farm we built in 2017, I would like to invite him to come and see the project. He said, invite me when you build storage. Right? He said, what would you do with this solar to serve the country? Right. So I think that, I wouldn't say it was a key reason, but just giving you direction where solar, it's achieving cost below coal was a huge milestone. Like the 2 rupees, the 2.5 rupees.
I'll just interject you. Just for our listeners, can you say how cheap is solar today compared to coal at a grid level?
There are 2 data points. Of course, at average grid cost of coal will be close to 4 rupees. New coal will be hopefully in the 5 rupee benchmark. So when you talk about solar as a standalone asset class, from what we hear from the auctions, is around, let's say, 2.4, 2.5 rupees.
So solar has not just met coal prices, but if we consider new solar plants versus new coal plants, that's about half of that. But
That's
then
right.
That's just half the picture, like you were saying, that
Absolutely.
storage
I think
is the key.
And so the data we collected back then in 2018-19 was, what's the real cost of solar and wind? And you apply the balancing cost of this energy. CEA came up with this report in 2021 that there's another 2.5 rupees that is required to really absorb this solar. So the true cost of solar wind, you have to add another 2.5 plus rupees. So storing is a new phenomena, but historically the DISCOMs used coal power to balance solar, and that's a unique situation. India, we have 90% coming from coal and solar, both are inflexible. But the biggest growth driver for Indian energy market is flexibility. Our peak energy demand is growing at 8 to 9%. Our base energy demand is growing at 3 to 4%.
So that means that there are certain times of the day where our maximum demand is growing much faster than our demand, say, during non-peak hours,
The
say
gap
at
between
night.
base and peak is now as high as 30%.
Wow.
Right? So what kind of energy form that can support this peak loads? Or
So
example
essentially,
of,
we need a power plant that can switch from this, say, providing 100 units to 130 units quickly.
Yeah, you need to support air conditioning load,
Right.
right? It only works for 8 hours in the night, right? So that's another big opportunity and challenge for India. But the bigger point is, how do we make, of course, renewables cheaper than coal is a huge milestone. But how do we make renewables with storage achieving the same, what they call as base load characteristics, which is achieving dispatch of energy every 15 minutes, 24/7 to the grid. So achieving a milestone of energy plus storage cheaper than coal is the holy grail. We stopped building renewables as a standalone assets. We only focused on building what I call as long duration storage. So how do we take this 6 to 8 hours solar and store it for 10 to 12 hours and deliver a 24/7 coal-like energy form in a reliable, with the same reliability, or gas-like energy form with the flexibility needed for the market. In both these benchmarks, we've achieved a global, I would say, first. So today we are from the first of our storage projects, which is just getting commissioned. So achieving energy plus storage, coal-like reliability below 5 rupees is a massive competitive advantage India has, and also achieving the flexibility of peak loads in that 6 to 7 rupee range is also a massive.
So you're nearly there.
Yeah, no, it is a milestone which we believe in any other country, this will be 2 times the cost.
Wow.
And of course, this is partly being enabled by 2 large factors. I would say the first large factor is Government of India's vision and the national grid we have, the one nation, one grid. And I keep saying this on global platforms that India has the single largest grid in the world at single frequency and most digitized and most advanced grid in the world. No OECD market, including China, can match India's grid vision we have and the preparedness we have. And so that is a backbone to really make 500 gigawatt target achievable, combined with the long duration storage and 100 gigawatt hour per day ability of storage we created is where achieving these milestones of what I call as carbon-free energy at a prices of around 5 rupees or $50-60 per megawatt hour.
What I understand is that just chasing headline numbers for renewable is not the answer. You also need a storage solution to kind of make it comparable to coal, that you can have energy consistently, reliably like a coal power plant, and you are not tied down by the timings we have the sun out for when the wind blows. There are currently prominent two ways in which storage solutions are delivered. One is where Greenko has made a bet on pumped hydro storage solutions, where there is a dam, there are 2 reservoirs. When you have peak generation of solar energy, you use that to pump water from the lower storage to the higher storage. This gives some potential energy to the water at the higher dam, and when you need to retrieve this energy, you again let the water flow from the higher reservoir to the lower reservoir, and you get your energy back minus the efficiency losses, say of 10%? 20%. So that is the bet that Greenko has made. Vishal, can you help me understand the other popular solution out there in the world right now, which is using batteries to do the same thing? Instead of relying on water, you simply store that energy in a battery.
Yeah, so look, I mean, to be able to design a power system, you will need different types of solutions, right? So battery is one of those solutions which is there. Of course, battery is following the same kind of price or cost curve advantages that you had with respect to solar, right? You had a continuously declining cost curve, which was fueled a lot by China's scale that they created. And it is one of the solutions. And of course, the attractiveness of that solution lies in the fact that, the amount of time you take to construct it is much lower, right? So for somebody who doesn't have it as part of his portfolio or doesn't have storage as part of his portfolio and looking to design a system or deliver a firm equivalent energy, it's easier for them to do, right? But whether it has the same kind of life, whether it has the same kind of storage efficiency, whether it fits the use case of, let's say, 10-12 hours that Mahesh spoke about, I think that is yet to be seen, right? Because you will need different levels of storage, different kinds of storage. So battery is one of the forms, and within battery also you will have different technologies within battery. I mean, right now we're talking only of LFP based battery storage.
LFP is lithium iron phosphate.
Yeah, and then you had somebody taking a bet on sodium ion, and
which obviously I think Reliance is betting on.
Reliance had acquired a company in that area. So people will obviously, people will keep innovating on that end. But at the end of the day, like Mahesh was saying, to design a full power system, right? Like you need different generation sources. You also need different types of storages to be part of the system, right? So my view is that battery will have its place and is having its place. And similarly, you have long duration storage, which in my view is a more difficult problem to solve, where pumped hydro is one of the answers to that problem. You may also need storage which is even longer duration, which is across seasons, right? Which is basically if wind is, for example, not available in certain seasons, how do you solve that problem? So that you will need other technologies also.
Do we have an answer to that, or is the search on?
I think that search will perennially be on, because it's not just about the technology. It needs to be at industrial scale. It needs to have the cost curve that is required. So theoretically, obviously, you will have a lot of options where you can do this seasonal storage. So
It's talked in US in some markets. They're trying to use hydrogen as a storage medium by putting them in salt caverns because it doesn't deteriorate and it can be used again later.
No, that actually leads me to my next question. So Greenko has, I believe, two big bets right now. One is on pumped hydro storage and the other is on green hydrogen. Can you tell us more about this and how are you making a business case out of green hydrogen?
Well, I would like to thank Vishal and BCG. I think it's another fundamental analysis. We worked with BCG in as early as 21 and said, hey, I think the 2-3 big views we have worked on is India as an energy market. We spend around 250 billion on energy spend. Less than 1/3 of that is really power, right? So whatever we do in renewables and storage is within that 1/3 basket, right? 2/3 is still molecules, which are essential part of every industrial value chain and transport and everything. So like we import close to $25 billion of LNG to make hydrogen for industrial purposes. So we are, I think we consume 6 million tons of hydrogen already. All of Europe is close to 6 and we consume alone 6 million tons. And the view we said is, unless we look to transition the 2/3 energy basket, right? The true transition has not started. And within that, we said, look, what is the hydrogen real cost, and how can we transition that 25 billion of LNG we buy to domestic hydrogen again, right? I think that's the analysis which BCG helped us work on. Is while the LNG price today, we as a country, India, like Japan, we have no negotiating power. So the cost of hydrogen today in India is $2 to $2.5 per kg. And through the models we created, we could demonstrate we can achieve $3 per kg hydrogen in India.
Wow. And just for context, I think the world is hovering around $4 to $6. So you're already ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I mean, US had offered $3 per kg subsidy because they're more close to $8. And in
and
Europe,
this 3 is without subsidies, or that also has a subsidy component?
3 is subsidy they would offer, and it still costs $6 after that.
But the 3 that Mahesh is referring to has no incremental subsidies that didn't exist for other sectors like solar, wind, whatever is there. I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's the key. When I said Europe is more like $10. So the key is how do we achieve hydrogen cost nearly on par with
conventional or grey hydrogen.
Yeah, or an energy we have to import, which has carbon value attached to it, inflation value attached to it, right? So, and that was clearly unique for India. Again, going back to the national grid we have, combined with our storage, we are achieving energy models in the range of $40 to $50 per megawatt hour, which drives these electrolyzers at the highest utilization rate, achieving $3 per kg.
And the electrolyzer basically splits water into hydrogen and oxygen.
Yes, it's a 7th grade science. It's nothing new in that electrolyzer as a concept has been there since 1940s. Bakaranangal Dam in 1960 used an electrolyzer to produce hydrogen, to make ammonia for the fertilizer or nitrogen value for the country. Just in recent past, gas becoming cheaper, so 18 million tons of ammonia we make in India, we import gas for that, right? So that's an interesting transition India can now do, achieving energy, because 80% of the cost of hydrogen is in the cost of power.
So once if you have renewable power, which you have, you can use it to make cheaper green hydrogen, which can then go to make, say, fertilizers, or even in the petroleum industry, which is refineries are big consumers of hydrogen, right?
Absolutely. I think the hydrogen mission, which the government of India has announced to replace 5 million tons of the 6 million, which is a big target because we achieved then 2 objectives. One, we are becoming, we can reduce imports, but by making hydrogen in India, we are making upstream hydrogen in India as well. Right?
And what do you mean by
What it
upstream
means
hydrogen?
is that when I talk about 5 million tons, when we displace 5 million tons, we will need to install 100 gigawatts of renewables. Right? So that's close to another $100 billion of upstream investments. We will make another $50 billion of midstream investments we will make to use hydrogen for the economy, which is already be part of the economy. Right?
But I think the use of hydrogen won't be restricted to just the petroleum or the fertilizer industries, is my guess, because the world wants to even say run cars on hydrogen. Of course, we are far away from that. But Vishal, if you can just help us understand how big of an opportunity is green hydrogen, not just from a sustainability point of view, but also from a geopolitical energy security point of view. And also, I mean, just like Norway and UAE or Saudi, the Middle East, they have used oil money to set up massive wells for their citizens.
Yeah.
Could hydrogen be such an opportunity for India?
To adding on to what Mahesh said, one is this 5 million, 6 million tons, which is our domestic hydrogen consumption. I think we are probably second or third largest consumer of hydrogen in the world, right? So hydrogen as a commodity is not a new commodity for us. In fact, there is an interesting anecdote that, like Mahesh mentioned about the Bhakranangal Dam, NFL, which is our National Fertilizer Limited, actually used to make hydrogen using electrolysis, and then they moved on to SMR, which is the current technology for making grey hydrogen. There was a big splash in the media about that we are moving on to the next technology, right? So life is coming back a full circle in that sense. Also, to give you a perspective, the caustic chlorine industry, which is called chloralkali popularly, right?
This is a chemical used for what?
This is chloralkali as a product is used in mining. It is used in paper, many industries. It's a bulk chemical which has multiple applications. There the input is basically salt and water, right, or salty water or brine as they call it. And it's an electrolysis process where on one electrode you get hydrogen and chlorine, and the other electrode you get sodium hydroxide. And these electrolyzers are huge. So electrolysis as a process, I said 7th grade science. I didn't learn it in 7th grade, but as you said, it is as old as that. The question is, it plays very well to Indian advantages, which is, all the things that are true about our ability to create low cost, low carbon energy, which I would say if you take across the world, we are fairly competitive in that. Not just competitive from a cost point of view, but also time to market. So for example, if you have to create 100 gigawatt of capacity to power electrolyzers to get to hydrogen, there are not many countries who can create that capacity at that scale so quickly, right? I mean, the grid part is a very important factor for us to be able to get to that number. We berate ourselves a lot about it, but at the end of the day, if you benchmark our ability to execute projects versus the rest of the world, we are obviously doing it faster, right? We can do faster than this, but we are doing it faster, right? But if you kind of then dial back and see if this innate capacity exists, and there is a demand for hydrogen in the world for multiple applications, because the chemical industry across the world, the fertilizer industry across the world, they will need hydrogen to decarbonize, or some carrier with hydrogen to decarbonize. If you look at Japan, Korea, they are talking about using green ammonia as their primary vehicle for decarbonizing their power plants, right? So there are new demand pools of hydrogen which are coming, and in many of these cases, hydrogen seems to be the only viable solution. I mean, there will be competition amongst technologies. So it's a big opportunity from that perspective for the world. And given that our competitiveness is very high, if we get our game right, honestly, it can be very big for India. It may not be as big as oil is for Saudi, but it is substantial, right? When you're talking about, we just discussed about 500 gigawatt target by 2030. I mean, 100 is just coming out of, if we get our act right on hydrogen. And that 100 is only for replacing domestic consumption. If you start exporting this, then the number is even higher, right? A lot of people talk about, I know it's nice to talk about EVs and all, but the CEA study on demand projections which they did on, how much power we will need, I think the number was 2032, 2400 billion units, out of which some 15 billion units was from
15
EV.
billion units of
Energy required for EVs, right?
Okay.
We talk a lot about EVs as a
right.
transition part, but it is just 15 billion going for EV. and 240 going for hydrogen.
Wow.
So hydrogen as an energy consumption kind of source is 10x, 15x of that, right? So that scale you can imagine. Not everything is hunky-dory there. We have to get our act right. There are a lot of things which need to be falling in place. Global demand has to come in. So it's not that, tomorrow this is going to unlock and open up. But to me, it's a very big opportunity for India.
I think it's a very big milestone we hope to demonstrate by mid-26. The first shipments of hydrogen in form of ammonia we hope to deliver in Europe, making India as a carbon-free new energy for the primary energy market needs when we're decarbonizing OECD markets through hydrogen from India. India will be the largest supplier of green molecules to Europe or to large OECD countries. So we signed with German companies like Uniper, where they like to take ammonia and make hydrogen back again for energy needs.
And this is just for the ease of transport. Hydrogen is
ammonia
very
is a-
flammable and dangerous to
Ammonia
transport.
for the last 60 or 70 years has been a nitrogen carrier. It's now becoming a hydrogen carrier. And so whether it's going to Germany as an energy source, it's going to Norway as a fertilizer source, it's going to France to repurpose a refinery, decarbonization. So uniquely, I think on finishing Kakinada, we'll be able to send 25 ships a year, which is nothing but exporting energy from India in the cleanest form to the global OECD market.
And just to get a sense of scale, you said it's a contract for 1 million tons a year. And India itself consumes about 5 to 6 million tons of hydrogen a year.
India consumes hydrogen. This is 1 million ton of ammonia, which is around 150,000 tons of hydrogen.
Understood.
But we are building 5 million tons of ammonia, green ammonia, which is equivalent to 1 million ton of green hydrogen in different locations. But that's the great opportunity. Another interesting application that's developing pretty quickly is shipping fuel. The global shipping fleets have already transitioned from dirty heavy fuel oils to cleaner fuels like LNG. So India will be able to actually deliver shipping fuels from within India or neighboring countries like Singapore. So I think we had this great opportunity to take this green electron, making it firm and valuable to the industry and to the markets. But when you make it into green molecule, it's become a global opportunity across many industries, and also an opportunity for India to earn dollars by exporting energy. We never had that opportunity, right? So when we started in 2008-9, the thesis was we were spending dollars to import energy.
Yeah.
Now we'll be earning dollars for
by
exporting
exporting energy.
Essentially, this transition can also help the Make in India movement.
It's actually a competitive advantage India never had. Now we can position India as a competitive place because we never had an opportunity to have low cost energy.
We have the skilled labor, we have the number of workers, we have everything, and now we'll also have cheaper energy. So essentially, green is not just the color of renewable energy, it's also the color of dollars we'll be bringing in.
Yes.
Mahesh, another interesting area where India is very bullish is nuclear energy. The Indian government wants to ramp up nuclear energy in the country from about 8 gigawatts right now to 100 gigawatts by our 100th anniversary of independence in 2047. So how do you see nuclear energy, and would we ever see Greenko making a third big bet apart from pumped hydro storage and from green molecules? Will you also be going into nuclear?
That's a good point. And clearly, nuclear, we see it as another great opportunity to have a zero carbon energy value to the country. So having a 20-25% of energy mix coming from nuclear is a great opportunity in India, and particularly the direction of new SMR technology. So I think we see nuclear definitely as a right bet in the next 10-year perspective, and we are evaluating the new policy, and we hope to be part of. We hope to be part of that, energy value to the country. The nuclear challenges in the past were more to do with, as a private businesses, and how do we get access to the right technology which has been solved through this policy. But equally, this policy takes into account how the government companies would deal with the waste and the operations. So it's a nice way to bring in. It's more like a PPP ability. Take another 10-year view of energy cost. We're in the right ballpark, so which can put India in with a 20-25% of energy mix coming from nuclear.
Wow. So essentially, Vishal, I think nuclear fixes the problem of not emitting carbons like coal, but it also is as reliable as coal. So it fixes the problem that, say, solar or wind have of intermittency. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think the question which has been debated, apart from all the other concerns around safety and how does private sector participate, geopolitics, etc., has been what's the long-term cost of nuclear. In my view, coal is also inflationary. So if it inflates based on crude prices or diesel prices and labor, and in the medium term, nuclear will catch up there, and you have to build significant capacity to be able to drive down costs or get more predictable costs. So I think it's an important part of the mix, and I think the good thing is that it has been opened up to the private sector, so we will see more action on it for sure.
But would nuclear not have the same issue of inflation? If nuclear becomes as mainstream as coal today is, would it not be linked to the inflationary pressures of other sources of energy?
I don't think it has the same inflationary inputs as you would have on coal. I mean, coal is fairly straightforward, as I said. All our coal is mined overground. It's labor intensive. And to move coal, basically, and to mine coal, move coal, you need diesel. So, and that is, we are fairly, we are in that 5-6% annual range for both of those parameters. I don't think we will be in that range for nuclear. So,
super.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mahesh. Thank you, Vishal. And that brings us to a close on this episode of India for the World. What do you think? Does renewable energy hold the keys to a developed India? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Stay tuned to Mint on YouTube for the next episode.